This isn't the way I thought I was going to start this. Maybe it's supposed to do this. I don't know. So now you're going to have to bear with me a little bit till I can get everything back together. I don't know. I told Josh, I said, what I thought I was going to have to do is get up here and do some jumping jacks or do something to kind of calm me down, but I didn't know I was going in this direction. I really didn't. That kind of hit me this morning. But anyway, we'll go on. Just the right time. When is the right time for God? Is it just when we need Him? Or is it all the time? You know, that's just for us to decide. We got to make our own decision on that. In Proverbs 16:9, it reads. Now I want you to listen to some of these verses today that are pretty simple. That's why I wrote them down. But I just want you to listen to them. In Proverbs 16, verses 9, it reads, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Pretty straightforward and pretty true, isn't it? You know, if we look back years and years and years ago, there was 400 years of silence before Jesus came. Why was there? I don't know, maybe the people was just living the way they wanted. They had the laws. Maybe God was watching to see if they would follow the laws. Maybe it took 400 years for the people to give up and they started to do things on their own. And what happened then? Well, they probably made a mess of things like we do. So they started putting more of their focus back on God because their way wasn't working. They had to go back and they had to ask God for help. Last resort. It's always the last resort. I think this was God's test, though. And the way I'd look at it, they failed. So that's when God actually stepped in and God did the ultimate fix on them. He sent His Son. He sent His Son to remind the people that they can't do it without God. There's no hope there. It's just the right time. Sometimes we have to look back at how God works. He might let us go all the way down the tunnel till there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And you know, sometimes we kind of wonder why He does that. We got to think about that when we're struggling with whatever we're dealing with. We try to fix it on our own. We always do. We might exhaust all the options that the world's got available for us. Sometimes we get desperate and have tried everything we know to do, and then what we do? Then we turn back to God for help. You know, why do we put God at the last resort? I still don't really know. Maybe it's because we can't physically see Him or touch Him. Maybe our faith might be a little weak. Maybe He's not fast enough for us on answers. Or maybe He doesn't give us the answers we want to hear. But after we go through all that, that's when everything is out of our mind and out of our control. the what do I do's, the how do I do it, and I don't know what to do, after all the I's, then we turn to God. You know, God should be a part of our everyday life. He should be a part of our everyday decisions and actions. God, He waits patiently for us. Sometimes when we're out of options, then He can help us, because we might be decluttered and open and desperate for help then. We're actually pretty similar to little kids throwing a temper tantrum. And a lot of us has had kids or been around them or dealt with them. And when they throw a temper tantrum, you can't get through to them. Not while they're in that mode right there. But we tell them to, you know, calm down, listen, and focus. I mean, really, think about it. Think about back when you had your kids and everything, and they're right here and they're throwing a temper tantrum, and you're telling them, calm down. Just calm down. Listen to me. Focus on me. And if none of you has done that to your kids, then I got some messed up kids, because I've done it a lot. But we don't listen a lot of the times unless we want to hear what we want to hear. That's just the way it is. Wait, patience, focus. I think that is God's test for us. All of us want things when we want them, which is right now. We don't want to wait. If we think about it, we get things when we want them, which is right now, then usually they're pretty short-lived things. We take them for granted. Things that we wait for and strive for usually last a lot longer, because we've put more hope, effort, thought, and planning into it. That's what God does, though. God knows all because He created us. He already put the hope in us. He put the effort and the thought and the planning into creating us. That's God's way. Everything in His time. And it's always the right time. It's not ours. God's our Father, and we're His children. God knows what we need and when we need it. As we grow up and hopefully start to understand some of these things, that's when I think hope, trust, and love comes into play. Love God. Trust in God. Hope we do it right. In Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 25 through 26, it reads, "The Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Pretty straightforward there, isn't it? For us, God's timing often feels like a long, desperate delay. God's perfect timing does two things. It grows our faith as we are forced to wait and trust in God, and it makes certain that He and He alone gets the glory and the praise for pulling us through everything. In Psalms 31, verses 14 and 15, it reads, "But I trust in you, O Lord, I say. You are my God. My times are in your hands." That's another pretty simple one, pretty straightforward. When God steps in and fixes our messes, God should get all the glory and the praise. We couldn't seem to get it done. Nobody else could. You know, if we step back and we actually look, we can see God's hands in our lives from the start. God's always been with us. I can tell you a couple of stories in my life that He's always had a hand in. And you're probably looking right now thinking, oh, this is story time. And it is. It got a little bit changed because I thought about telling you a story, how God worked in my life, and I thought, you know, there's hundreds of them. I just kept thinking of something else. And I thought, you know, I'm going to tell you something pretty current and that actually affected everybody here. And you had a little part in. And you can think about it, and you got to listen, and you got to think how God's timing fell into this. It's the old sanctuary out there. If everybody thinks back about that, you know, it kind of fell apart, and it was used for storage, and it was getting run down, and some of us decided we wanted it back up and going. We wanted to put it back in service. And, you know, it's just like anything, you know, some people wanted to do it, some people wanted to tear it down. It was back and forth, didn't get done. Finally, there was a little bit of donation. It was like, we would like to see it get done. Anyway, everybody finally got on the same page and decided we're going to finish it. We're going to put it back into service. So we started working on it, and it went pretty slow and kind of drug feet again. Then it kind of picked up. And then it was starting to get finished, pretty close. And I don't know if God talked to Pastor Kevin. I don't know how he come up with any of this. I assume God probably put something on his heart to use this old sanctuary with 1869 back to church thing. Let everybody know how it used to be when it first was built, and see that there's not a whole lot of difference. The messages all mean the same. They may sound a little different. So he come up with that, and we decided, oh, we got to get it done now. So it actually just got finished in time to have this 1869 service on Christmas Eve. Then we went a little farther and decided, well, let's dress up. Let's make it a little fun for everybody, and let's dress up like they did back then. So we had these big plans. Don't know if God wanted us to do all this. You never know. You got to try different things. But anyway, we had all these plans. And come Christmas Eve, church was done. Some of us showed up there. It's cold in there. I'll just kind of enlighten you on that, Pastor Kevin. It was cold in there, and I think we could have went maybe just a little on the newer version of turning our heat on, but it was cold that night. It was a nasty night. It was nasty outside, cold in the church. Got in there, and some of us are sitting there all dressed up and looking around. It's like there ain't very many people here. I mean, it was pretty weak. I guess the thing that go through your head a little bit is like, well, I guess this wasn't a good idea. Here's where God's timing comes in on that, the way I look at it. Right before we started the service, and we started it on time, and I'm usually the one that walks in right on the dot, you know. I'm not an early bird. All of a sudden, I actually heard Brenda Anderson talking in the back. I looked back there, and there's people just coming in left and right. And before we started the service, that church was full. That was God's time there, and He was letting us know that, you know, this work, it's all right. It's a good thing. But I think He wanted to test our faith a little bit and our patience. It's like, I ain't going to let them all come in until right there on that time. So, you know, I look at things that way. I'm always looking for the answers. And I can tell you another story that actually happened this year. I could have went way back, but the church thing, I thought we was all part of that. So I kind of wanted you to be in that story. This story here is kind of about something that happened to me this year. And I'll try to make it fairly quick, but it's about a cornfield. You know, I don't have a job no more. All I do is farm, and I depend on this now. And I'm trying to do it right. But it was the last field I had to plant as far as corn, and had the ground worked. It wasn't quite as good as I wanted, but I thought it's okay because they called for rain. So I went ahead and planted it that day. And I thought, well, I think it'll be all right. And it rained the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Yeah, I thought, okay, this ain't good. So a week went by, and I went up there checking that field, and I thought, you know, some of them was popping up, the corn, and some of them wasn't. So I thought, well, I'll give it another week. So I went up there a week later and checked that field, and I had grass coming up everywhere. Well, you couldn't hardly see the little corn then, but I started walking that field, and I thought, man, I'm missing. A lot of it didn't come up, so I thought I'm going to have to replant that field. So I called the seed guy. I said, hey, you guys need to come out here and look at this, because, you know, I bought the more expensive seed, so if something don't work, they give you the seed to replant. They come out and looked at it. And they said, you know, I'd give it another week. I said, well, that's pushing the boundary, you know, on getting it put in not too late. And they said, yeah, I know, but I think it'll make it. I was like, oh, it looks horrible. So I gave it another week, and I went back up there, and it hit the nitrogen a little bit, and it jumped. And I thought, well, it don't look as bad. So we started walking it, and it's like, whew, it is that bad. You go down the rows, there was corn missing everywhere, and had some grass in the rows, and I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I think I just need to replant it. And they said, you know what, I'd let it go. Just let it go, and because it's getting late now. I said, okay. So I said, oh, I'll just let it go. And he said, it ain't going to be your best field. It's probably going to be the worst field you got, but it'll make some corn. I said, all right. So I have a tendency of praying over each field. When I go to plant a field, you know, and when I'm done, I ask God to, you know, put your hand on that field if you would for me. Well, this one, actually, I asked him twice when I planted it, and then after that, I said, Lord, I just wish you'd watch over this field for me and give me what you think I need out of it. Which that turned around kind of funny. That field looked horrible all year. I was hoping nobody knew whose field that was, because it was right along the road. And I thought, oh man, that looks bad. I got where I didn't want to go buy it. Come harvest time, I went up there, and I told Josh, I said, he goes, what do you think it'll make? I said, if it made 100 bushel an acre, I'd be tickled to death. But I said, it won't. I said, there's no way. I said, there's too much missing. grass probably took some of it. You know, I said, just take what I get. So I went up there one night, moved the combine in the truck. I shelled a place open so I could get my semi backed up in the field. And I was shelling the end rows off, just part of them, and I thought, man, I got a hopper full. I thought, well, that's good. So I dumped it on the truck, and all I was doing to do is open up this one little section so I could back the truck up, and next thing I knew, I had a semi-load. And I thought, well, maybe this ain't that bad. So I started shelling the next day. I started shelling the field. And as I was going down through there, I thought, where'd this corn come from? I mean, it's all the way down the rows. And I just got tickled because I thought, I knew what happened. I knew what happened in all that. Oh, my granddaughter, Addison, wanted to ride in the combine. So she come up, and she got in the combine, and we was going down through there, and she said, hey, Pap, there's grass down through this corn. I said, I know. She said, it don't look real good. I said, I know. But it's actually doing pretty good. And she goes, it is? I said, yeah, look in the back here. And she goes, oh, there's a lot of corn coming out. I said, you know what, Addison? I said, this is a God field. And she said, what do you mean? I said, and I told her the whole story from start to beginning. I said, this field shouldn't have made nothing. I said, it shouldn't have made 50 bushel an acre. I said, she said, what's it making? I said, I don't know, but it's pretty good. I said, it's more than what I thought, I think. And she goes, well, that grass still don't look good. And I said, no, it don't. But I said, you know, I asked God to put his hand on this and give me what he thought I needed out of it. And I did what I was supposed to do, and I said the rest was up to him. Well, after I got done with the field, you haul your loads in at the elevator and you get a ticket. It tells you how much each load held. And I had to figure that field up that night. I figured that all up, and I thought, yeesh, oh, surely not. And I refigured it again. I ended up with 158 bushel an acre. It was the heaviest test weight corn that I'd done all year, and it was the driest. And I thought, I don't get that. I mean, that was 158 bushel an acre is okay. It's not, they're getting way more now, but when I figured out, I thought, man, oh man, I was going to be tickled at 100 bushel an acre. God must have thought I need just a little bit extra on that 58 bushel. So I'll take it, and I appreciated it. So that was another thing that I seen God's hand in and working. And sometimes I think some people kind of look at things like, them's just stories. You know what? They are stories that happened to me, and I seen God's hand in it. That's why I need to tell you this stuff. You guys need to look at your own lives, because God works in your lives every single day. You look back through your life, you can see his hand at just the right time. Sometimes we get a little bit busy, and I could have said, man, I'm lucky on that field. Luck had nothing to do with it. Even though I got a horseshoe hanging in my rear view mirror on one truck, it has nothing to do with it. If we continue to believe and trust in God, we get our answers and our questions answered. We always do. We will if we are patient and have our heart and mind open to God and understand and see why God picked his time to answer us. He'll always give us the answer. And you hit points, and I'm sure everybody does it, like Steve, and you start writing things down and thoughts pop into your head. I just told you, when you're patient and you have your heart and mind open to God, you'll get your answers. And the thing that popped into my head right after I wrote that is, I can do all things through God. And that's another little quote, but what I put behind that is, you can't do it without God. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, it reads, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." Pretty simple too, isn't it? Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Everybody understands that, don't they? You do too, huh? You know, I don't mean a bad thing about any of this that I'm going to say, but, I've been cautioned before to watch what I tell people as far as things being simple in the Bible. And what I look at is, I look at these verses that I just told you. And I don't care what anybody says. They're simple. They're straightforward and they're simple. The way I look at that is, when God gave us the directions on what to do in our lives, and He told us, this is what I want you to do to follow me, this is how you need to live your life for me. You look at all them scriptures and they're pretty daggone simple. They're straightforward. They're simple. God wouldn't have talked to us over our heads or made it complicated. He wanted everyone to understand what He wanted to tell you and what He wanted you to do. He wanted it simple. The hard thing and the complicated part of them simple scriptures, and this is where I'll agree on, maybe I misled on the simple part. The complicated and the hard part about each of them scriptures is doing them. That's what's hard about it. And that's what's complicated about it. I cannot get out of my head what Rich Roth said. And the funniest thing, I'm not the only one it didn't stick, it stuck with. In a Bible study years ago, a friend of mine was coming to it, Mitch, and he still brings it up too. But Rich, we was talking about something in Bible study, and I said, I don't get it. I don't understand any of that. And Rich, he looked at me, and Mitch goes, I don't either, really. And Rich goes, well, I'll tell you what, guys. He said, you just need to learn the basics right now. He said, the rest are details. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when you start out in Sunday school, when you're a little kid, they don't teach the details first. They teach the basics. Once you get the basics down, then you can move on to the details. Sometimes, though, and maybe that's why I think a little simple and I look at things a little simple, because I don't understand the details yet. Maybe that's why I think the way I do. I like things simple. I don't like things complicated. Makes things hard. I haven't got all the questions answered yet, but I am listening and I'm watching. And when I hit that, what popped into my head was trust and obey, for there's no other way. And guess what? In God's time, I'll get my answers. It's in God's perfect time. And that probably sounds like the end of this, but it's not. I got to tell you one last story. And this actually, this falls into God's perfect timing. And I got it wrote down that I want to tell you this, but this may be a little hard because this is about my dad. And Ray kind of messed that up today. No, he didn't. It's all good. When my dad, right before he passed away, well, probably a year before he passed away, he had cancer. People don't know him. He had cancer, ended up getting his bones, and just a long process. And my dad was a total believer in Christ. He did a lot of praying, and he taught me a lot. Well, the last year, I'd say, he got on this one prayer, and he said, this is a selfish prayer, but I'm going to pray it anyway. I said, all right. He said, every time he'd pray, he'd always start out praying for everybody else, which I like I said, I was in the learning process and through all that, but he'd pray for everybody else first. And then he'd throw a few in for him. And one of them he always said was, Lord, don't let me lose my mind. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, I don't want to go nuts. He said, I don't want to lose my mind. He said, I want to be still thinking. I want to understand what's going on. I said, well, you will. He said, well, you never know. I may lose it. I said, well, we'll see what happens. So last year, he's doing real good. I mean, he knew what was going on every day. You go down there, even right there at the last, probably the last 4 or 5 days, he ended up pretty much in bed. He couldn't really get out and didn't walk. And he was laying there. I was staying all night and staying there. And I got up one day and went down there. I said, you all right? He opened his eyes. He said, yep. He closed his eyes again, and he kind of started laughing. And he kind of snickered, and I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, it's making sense. And they started kind of that chuckling again, kind of laughing. I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, it's all making sense. It's all coming clear. Well, you know, I thought, well, okay, he finally lost it. Because I thought he wasn't thinking right. I thought, well, and, you know, the way I look at things like that, that is really out of my element, taking care of somebody or being a health caregiver. I'm not that. I can take care of animals, but people, this was a whole new experience, and I got a little scared because he kind of went off once because they got their medicine all screwed up on him, and he kind of went off once, and actually Steve was a part of that one. And we didn't know. We thought he just went loony. But they got him all straightened up on that. But anyway, I just kept looking at him. And he's laying there smiling real big and chuckling. And I said, what are you doing? I said, are you all right? He goes, yeah. He said, I'm not going to open my eyes. He said, because it's all making sense. He said, it's all coming clear. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. But I watched him, and he'd just laugh, and he'd smile real big, and he was happy. Oh, man, he was happy. I thought, man, whatever's going on with you, it's good. It's good. Well, he actually taught me what joy meant. If any of you, heard me talk about that, he's the one that actually taught me the meaning of joy, and I got to actually see it in works with him. I thought, like I said one time, I thought joy was just what you hung on the, Christmas. But joy is a whole another thing, and I'm not going there today. But as far as telling Debbie, at that time, when I looked down, he was so excited, he was happy, and he was talking about everything clear and everything making sense, and I see nothing but joy in that man. He was filled to the brim with joy that day. And I can only believe that God was giving him all the answers right then, at just the right time. Now we're going to end it. Pastor Kevin, when he told me I could do this one, I looked at the topic and didn't make a bit of sense to me. I don't usually ask for help or directions sometimes, which I probably ought to, but I did on this one, didn't I? I asked Kevin, I said, hey, I think I need help. I don't know what to do on this. So he electronically shot me a text, giving me a little bit of, he said, here's an idea. It honestly didn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. And he said, if that doesn't work, he said, you can let me know and I'll send you something else. I thought, this may go on for a long time. And then he turned around and made this comment. And this is all on you right now, because he said, you know what, Kev? He said, just make it your own. And go in the direction that God tells you to go in. So I did. I didn't write all this stuff. I can't do that. I had help. The funniest thing, a lot of people might not be able to understand it. That might have been just something God was teaching me again writing this. I don't know. I hope you ponder this. And I hope you figure something out that God wanted you to get out of this. It's pretty simple, really. That's all mine are, pretty simple. I use pretty simple verses. And the only thing I can think, if you might got something out of it, it could be as simple as trust in it and obey, for there's no other way. You know what? Thanks for listening, and thanks for putting up with me. This one, I didn't know it was going to start like this. But Ray, you know what? God's with you. We're all with you. You ever need prayer, all you got to do is holler, and I guarantee you we'll all be there.